Merry Christmas and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my long-awaited partner in crime returning to us, Anthony Prohaska. Anthony, as I put in my description, and many are already putting in the chat, why do they do this to us? Why is our
Dude,
life the way that it is?
it was so I was like, is it because I'm doing the post game? Like, did I do this? Is this my fault? You're just like these type of games, like you're left like looking inward and just trying to figure out the whys and to the mysteries of life. It was like brutal in like a heart-stopping way. And it's the holiday weekend. Like you just want to zone out and be like, oh, Christmas and holiday and family. And here come the Bills to potentially take your throat or take your heart out of your throat and stomp on it. But luckily, like Al Davis says, just win, baby. We're okay. 24-22. You know, the train marches forward.
Yeah, the combination of, like you said, everything going on. I was at my parents' house watching the game, and we're like trying to figure out, hey, what are we gonna do? Do we come back to the hotel beforehand? Do we finish the game here? We're going back and forth, and I'm like, hopefully it's kind of out of reach, and we're just kind of cruising, and I don't have to be like super zoned in on everything every moment. And then, of course, we dig a 10-0 hole, just immediately throw that out the window. But then it almost was like perfect in the setup where I was like, all right, well, they got me there for a little bit. But when we went back up like 21-3 and had the ball back, or 21-13 and had the ball back, I was like, okay, we're just going to kind of pull away here, and I'm not going to have to worry about it. And then, of course, we gave up 3 fourth quarter field goals. That's a really weird stat. You don't see 3 fourth quarter field goals by one team very often. So yeah, we're not allowed to have nice or easy things. We are meant to suffer through everything. But as you said, and as the great and wise Al Davis told us, just win, baby. That's all we do right now: survive and advance, move on to another week. So just overall, this wasn't the prettiest game. I think there's a lot of different things. Jason did give us a hard time about Aaron and I not being there for it. I promise next week we're going to get the 111th, and we're going to have my game day thread. I promise both things will be back and committed. What were your thoughts watching this game in the expectations, the Chargers crazy blowout last week, the possibility of the dead cat bounce with the fired coach, and all the different things? I know you are an admittedly superstitious person. What were your thoughts with some of the other Jeff Saturday experiences that we've gone through?
I didn't think it would be as close as it was, but I didn't think it would just be a straight up blowout. Like the Chargers still have some dudes. I did believe in a little bit of, that immediate boost you get, the dead cat bounce, as you keep referring to it, like, which I hate that because I love cats and that makes me sad, but it's a good reference.
It is. I will say it. I don't know why that's the saying. Like, it's a really horrific, dumb saying. I don't know why that's the saying, but like, I get the idea that like it's not a real. Like, I get it. I understand the physics of what they're saying is that like it's not actually, but it's a horrific saying. So I got to find something better. In the chat, help me out.
Yeah.
In the chat, give me something better than dead cat bounce for what happens the week after coaches get fired and you get this like false inflation of their abilities. Give me something better so I can stop saying it.
It's also that one to me is like it's not as bad, but the one where when people are like, oh, there's multiple ways to skin a cat. I'm always like, why are we skinning a cat? Like, and why do we need multiple ways?
Let's not skin cats.
Yeah,
There should be no ways to skin. You should need 0 ways to skin any cats. You should not need that skill in any setting.
Why have we found multiple? Was the first not good enough? And why was there even a first? Yeah, so there's just a lot of questions, but I think this is what people tune into. They're like, that does make a lot of sense. Why is it called that? But I didn't think they would get blown out. Talking to Chris offline before we went live, I liked the point Rodney Harrison made in the pregame before the game went live of, a lot of these guys are auditioning for jobs, going forward. So you're going to see, some intensity coming from that team. They do have good players on both sides of the ball. Again, this team, the Chargers are a real interesting case study. Like they've got talent. Like they just seem to, Chargers going to Charger. They can't win games. Like they lose these close games. And even when things seem right or like they're going right for them, they don't. So I didn't think it would be a blowout. I didn't think it would be as close as it was, but I didn't come in thinking it would just be, 45-10 and stomp them out. But it was definitely a lot closer than I wanted it to be. And I also thought NBC was doing everything they could to jinx the Bills. Like the Chargers are 0-5 this year. It was decided by, 3 or 7 or less points. And then it was like Tyler Bass is 8 for 8 in field goals in this scenario. I was like, why are you?
Stop it.
Yeah, it was, definitely, nerve-wracking, but I also too, in the general grand scheme, like you really don't see blowouts in the NFL a lot. We've got the Miami game against Denver this year. You've got the Raiders game against this Chargers team, but very rarely do you just see one team stomp the ever-loving hell out of another, even if it looks like it should be that way on paper.
Yeah, it's tough because you go through there, and I think whether it's Rodney Harrison and lots of other folks made similar comments, there's a pride element that comes into play where, Khalil Mack and Derwin James and Austin Ekeler are not just like some guy. Like those are legit excellent players. And then the other guys, like you said, anybody with a contract coming up to expire, even, Easton Stick's comments, I think were genuine in that, like, I can't even count on there being 3 games here. Like I might get one more game.
Mm-hmm.
Like I might never get a chance to play on an NFL field again. And I don't know that Easton Stick was amazing tonight, but I was impressed. Like it was a little bit better than what we saw in the previous game. And of course, anything's going to be better than the previous game. But it just was. I expected, and that's why, like I had predicted, like 27-13, like a little lower scoring than what we thought, and like I don't think we were going to just boat race them because I thought you were going to get the absolute best effort from everybody. I didn't expect, us to give up as many scoring drives as what we did. Because, anytime you're in a spot where you're giving up 5 field goals and the number of like opportunities they had to score, like we're really fortunate that it was only the 1 touchdown and ended up being the 5 field goals, because that means we gave up 6 scoring drives. And there's pieces that come into that with the red zone defense that, we'll talk about it when we get to our drive of the game, and some of the spots where the defense wasn't put in awesome positions. We had some really untimely turnovers that we'll get to. But the fact that they were in position to score 6 times was that was the one piece that really exceeded what I was expecting. And I don't think it's all on the defense. I think a lot of that was the field position and the turnovers with, losing the turnover battle to an underdog, recently disrespected team with a new coach. That's like the perfect recipe to let a team like that hang around and be in a spot like this.
Absolutely. And, you started to get a little bit of that recipe with the turnovers, the penalties, and then early on, even through some of the majority of the game, although we turned it on in spurts, we also got some of that kind of that dovetail version of Josh Allen, just some decision-making, some inaccurate throws, even ones that he was completing were like a bit off frame and making his guys work a little harder. And it seemed very much like, like here we go type of thing, where when we've seen this team struggle, it's usually all these little breadcrumb problems that get added together into being this one giant negative. And it was one of my big things. I don't want to start this conversation. I'm not giving Ken Dorsey a pass, so nobody yell at me. But so many of these Ken Dorsey poor performances were guys fumble, a bad read by Josh, a bad throw by Josh, a drop, a horribly timed penalty, the things that would derail these drives. And that's what we saw a bunch in this game. And exactly to your point, that's how you allow, like, this Chargers team came out gritty. They were grinding, like they were trying to give everything that they could. And they did. And then you're also gifting them all these literal gifts in terms of turnover penalties. And the one drive that the biggest one that gave me like the most cause for concern was the first offensive drive for the Chargers, 14 plays, 90 yards, ended in a field goal. But then the rest of their drives that had points, the touchdown drive, it started at the Buffalo 27. The next drive that gave them a field goal started at their own 42. Then the next one started at their own 25, and then at the Buffalo 48 and the Buffalo 32. So the majority of those scoring drives were all starting with tremendous field position, to your point. Majority of them starting in Buffalo territory, already in like, you just throw 3 incompletions, you're already set up for a good field goal. So it was a little concerning when you look at like the volume of points given up, but knowing the circumstances that they were put in, it's pretty good performance by this defense that, also actually dodged a bullet. I think everybody collectively held their breath when Terrel Bernard pulled up. Like, anytime you hear non-contact injury and a guy grabs his foot, like, the injury du jour this year is Achilles injuries. And I think everybody was just like, oh God, no. Like, I didn't move. I was just frozen, staring at the screen, and then I heard he walked off. But this defense, it kept the team in the game. There was a lot of opportunity for the Chargers to fully grab all the momentum and really ride. Thought the defense did a good job keeping them at bay and preventing that pendulum from fully swinging into the Chargers' favor.
Yeah, I think I'd love to see some of the numbers on how many teams lose the turnover differential by -3 on the road and still win a game. Like, I don't, it's not zero. Like, the 3 is still within the range of outcomes there, but that's got to be less than 10%. Like, there's got to be a really low percentage of how often those things come up. So let's dive in a little bit on the performance. This certainly was not Josh Allen's finest performance. The numbers are going to look a little bit better because of the 57-yarder to Gabe Davis and a couple other longer plays. It actually could have looked even better if Khalil Shakir's knee was like 1 more millimeter off the ground. It would have been a touchdown. Although the way the timing of it worked, it was. I think it's debatable on is the amount of time in that situation off the clock versus having the touchdown. Like, I think it's an argument. I know Collinsworth was very quickly jumping into that. It was immediately in the Chargers' favor. And I'm like, yeah, but if we get the 2-point conversion and we're up a full touchdown, like, that's not ideal either. So we'll see where that goes. Josh Allen ends the game 15 of 21. So, just almost 75% completion percentage for 237 yards. So it's going to be an 11.3 yards per attempt with a touchdown. He runs for 2 touchdowns. So he extends his NFL record to an 11th game of a passing and a rushing touchdown. He has over 40 touchdowns, the first time in history to have 4 consecutive 40 touchdown seasons. And all those things. So he broke his own NFL record while breaking another NFL record, and it wasn't that good. Explain.
I mean, I think it just goes with the whole idea of, like, Josh Allen being the enigma that he is, and, like, the yin and yang of Josh Allen. And I think Eric is one of the first people where I heard use the verbiage like the high variance. And that's just what it is with Josh Allen. Like, before he throws that pass to Gabe Davis, we're all sitting there just going, man, like, bad reads and inaccurate balls and poor ball placement. Like, what the hell is going on? And then he just rolls out and evades and it drops it in the bucket on the run. And you're just like, oh, okay. Like, that's just, he can just swing the pendulum in the blink of an eye. But when it's going bad, it's ugly. And it was that first throw of the game, like on the quick little screen to Diggs, and he just like dirted it. And I was like, oh, it's going to be one of those nights. And it's unfortunate because it really starts to derail the offense when he gets into that rhythm, because the variance plays play such a large factor in this offense, as they do for a lot of the teams that ride with their quarterback like that. But I didn't like some of the decision-making early on the first drive. The one that he went to Gabe Davis that got broken up by Hawkins, he had Murray wide open underneath that. A little check down. Everybody had vacated that side. Murray probably gains 15 yards like easy. Like, there's no one there. Derwin James dropped.
The super stressful punt situation, Dawson Knox was right there, and he even kind of looked at him. Like, that one, I'll give him a break that there was a lot going on, and maybe he was worried about getting hit from behind or a muddy pocket, and maybe he thought the sack was the safer play. But I was like, well, I mean, Dawson wasn't going to run for 27 yards like that was, or 22 yards or whatever it was.
Profit.
But like, hey, it actually helps us a lot if you could get us like 5 or 8 yards here to have a normal punt situation. And like those couple, it wasn't his cleanest day. You had the Khalil Shakir saved him on the 1 3rd down on the drive where he had to go all like really far back across his body to be able to make a catch that ended up being a big play. And just a couple of those, I think that was a touchdown drive on the drive that he saved that on. It just wasn't sharp. It wasn't his normal sharp self.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to put it. It wasn't sharp. Even before, I think the play before the Dawson Knox one you're talking about, or maybe it was even that same play. Like, he had Sherfield on a deep inbreaker right at the sticks coming clear, but he had already pulled his eyes down, even though he technically didn't need to. Although to your point, the pocket was like a little muddy. It was just one of those things where, yeah, the sharpness wasn't there. And then I think we all know at this point, when things aren't going well for Josh, he really tries to make them get better in a hurry. He wants to course correct for things as much as he can, as quickly as he can. And then it starts to snowball. He presses a little too much. Usually when you're seeing him off early, he continues to be off because he starts pressing a little bit more. And that for him, that doesn't lead to, more refined play. It leads to more inconsistency, roller coastery, non-sharpness from him. But he made the high variance plays when he needed to. He showed some of that unicorn ability, and then made a couple beautiful throws. I mean, a bunch of them to Gabe Davis. 130 of Allen's yards were to Gabe Davis. The touchdown was beautiful, and then the one up the sideline was beautiful. So if your defense keeps you in the game and you have a quarterback that can make these high variance explosives, it can be a winning formula. It's a stressful one that makes us want to throw up, but it's still a winning formula.
Yeah, and I would say 100 of Gabe's 130 felt like they were off scramble drill plays. 3 out of the 4 were, and it was just that kind of night. As we shift to the running backs, Dennis's comment here really stuck out to me. I'm curious when you guys get to break down the film and see what was there. I'm really interested in how much of that was just, hey, you have a new defense coordinator calling for the first time, and he's looking at what happened the week before, where Cook was the engine of this offense. He actually got 20 carries again.
Yeah.
And I was surprised. I didn't feel that way.
Same.
Watching until I looked, and I'm prepping for the game, the show here. I was like, oh, he had 20 carries. Okay, yeah. All right. But the fact that I could see a couple times where they ran that quick flare motion where, like, real quick right before the snap, where we've swung it to him a couple times, and you saw Derwin James, they highlighted once on the broadcast, and you saw a couple other times where that was an area of focus. I'm curious, once we get more visibility to it, how much was James Cook not getting a single target? Was the Chargers just like being really keyed in on that? And how much of that was either Josh not looking his way when he was available, or on Joe Brady? Like, did we not utilize some of the same things? I know there was the one play that we obviously spammed it back to him a second time in a row. But I didn't see a lot of the repetition that we saw in the run game the game before. So again, I think the Chargers were really revved up for this game. The efficiency doesn't look great for Cook, but he had some tough runs. Obviously, going to hear a lot about putting the ball on the carpet twice. That's going to really cause some anxiety. But I'm curious to see when I see more about why we didn't see that. And then Fournette, I thought ran tough. 5 carries, was clean and looked like it made sense for him to be out there. But just the bar got really high for Cook all of a sudden, and now came back down a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair summation of like his performance tonight, the run game performance. And the targets point, I think, is the biggest one that I'm interested to see with the film, and in addition to some of the run stuff. But yeah, like Brady's calling card, again, going back to his time at LSU, it's part of the reason that Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a first-round pick in the draft was, Joe Brady's ability to get his running backs involved in the passing game as either primary options in the route distribution or natural parts of the progression. And we've seen that so much, starting with his first game against the Jets every single week. And I wonder if this game was like, yeah, to your point, was it the Chargers were like, no, we're taking that away. It's not going to happen. Or was it Joe Brady trying to do some of that, like, I know that you know what I know, so you think I'm going to zig, and actually I'm going to zag. And then it was like, crap, that didn't work out. So I'm interested to see what that looked like. Collinsworth even noted that, I think in like the third or fourth quarter, like the lack of running back targets and running back action in the pass game, considering what Joe Brady has done. Again, I know early on that first drive, I think it was on the third down, that one to Murray that Allen just didn't see. So I'm wondering if that happened more. And then with the run game, last week it was that tackle wrap dart concept. Yeah. Chargers weren't letting that happen this week. Yeah. And one of my big points I love that Brady spammed it last week against the Cowboys. My bigger point, and I don't like the Cowboys. I was so disappointed that the Cowboys just didn't adjust. Like, we've seen defenses, the Jets have done it multiple times this year, especially in that second game, where they're able to squeeze that front side gap with the play of their linebackers, or, if you can just win up front on the interior, that's an easy way to disrupt it. But you squeeze that front side gap and you're okay, or you chase it down from behind. But usually you squeeze that front side gap. And the Cowboys were just like, no, cool, just keep bleeding us slow. We're fine with it. And
I get it in a drive. Like, I get that you can't adjust in a drive, but to let them come back multiple times after, like, you never just pulled everybody together on the sideline, like, hey, did you notice Spencer Brown keeps coming around that way? And then sometimes we'll send Deanne Dawkins the other way.
Right.
Can you guys just keep an eye on that? Do a little something?
Right. I mean, if someone did that and they were like, no, it's fine, just let them keep doing it. And they're like, why would we let them? All right, whatever, coach. Like, let's do it. Chargers came in, and honestly, on both sides of the ball, but especially defensively, they controlled the line of scrimmage. They were getting pushed. They were getting penetration. They were creating some displacement for themselves, which we really haven't seen happen to the Bills' offensive line too much this year. And that tackle wrap dart concept really wasn't there. The Chargers were cutting it off on the front side. They were getting penetration on the interior. And so Brady's answer, they found success with that mid-zone run game. We saw him spam that a ton. Trent Sherfield and that jet motion, and then we'll give it to James Cook, mid-zone. We saw him able to attack. I love your point with the Cook carries. That's the first thing I did, looking at the box score, and I was like, 20 carries? Like, it didn't feel that way. But I think part of the reason it didn't feel that way was because it was like a real, like, it felt like you were pulling teeth with that run game. It was just not a lot of positive gains. That mid-zone did work, but that was really it. Again, it was hard for Cook to gain any traction because the Chargers were winning on that in that aspect on the offense against the Bills' offensive line. And then that paired with Allen's, lack of sharpness in the pass game really created a lot of sluggishness for this offense.
Yeah, pivoting to the receivers. Obviously, Gabe Davis, his strength is always in the scramble drill. That really came up today, but there was a couple other nice plays as well. All the different things you see back and forth, that the different tweets once a month, he's the best receiver on the planet.
That was gold.
It just doesn't make a ton of sense why all of a sudden he can be so amazing after 3 of the last 4 games without a catch. It's weird the way that those things work. Khalil Shakir, we talked about him kind of saving Josh on the one play. It was odd to see, Stefon Diggs is going to look like 5 catches for 29 yards. 3 of those were really clutch first downs. 2 of them, like, fingertip amazing catches that were really, really needed. Obviously, we saw they couldn't connect on a couple of the different ones. Josh, if he could set his feet, Steph was open on the one that would have been a touchdown, but you just can't throw it. Like, if you can't set your feet, like, even Josh Allen can't go back across your body to lead someone down the field 60 yards in the air. Like, you gotta accept some limitations. Like, I get it. He makes hero plays all the time. So it's weird that I don't think Steph had a terribly bad game, but obviously 5 for 29 looks bad. And then this game was one of the weirdest we saw very little from the tight ends. Dalton Kincaid had a drop, which I don't love to see again after I had chalked that up in my mind to bad gloves in the rain.
Yep.
So I don't love that this one came back and had one. And then, Dawson Knox I did love the one fake pitch design on, not a leak, but getting him back across on the play to Knox. So the pass catchers as a whole, I don't think it was Josh's cleanest game. So anytime that happens, the receivers aren't going to have their best game. But Gabe looked great in the scramble drill. Steph made some clutch plays. Khalil Shakir made a clutch play. So I think they did their job relatively, even if it wasn't the most amazing one we've seen.
Yeah, and even just from a volume standpoint, Allen only having 21 attempts in this game, like, you're not going to see a ton of raw volume in production. But I like your point there. You got clutch moments when you needed them, like the 2 big Gabe Davis catches, the nice catch on a beautiful throw from Allen on that 3rd down to Diggs on that last drive, the game winner for the Bills. That big catch by Shakir that we talked about multiple times here, which was, again, an inaccurate throw from Allen. Just the receivers made the plays when they had to. Again, they weren't going to get a ton of opportunities tonight with the attempts and the way the game script was going, but they made moments and plays happen when they needed to. And even, Shakir recognizing what was going on that switch release, where he makes the catch at the end, and was he down? Was he not down? Touchdown, yada yada. Like him getting his head around and making a play in addition to Allen making a play with that blitz. Make the plays when you have to. Like, again, not the cleanest game, not exactly what you want to see from the offense as a whole. Like, and like you said, when Allen struggles, the entire passing game by extension is going to struggle. I think the biggest cause for concern is we're seeing again another game where it looks like it's just hard for Allen to get the ball to Stefon Diggs, and I don't know how much the neck or whatever it was early that happened on the very first play of the game. Looks like Derwin like wrenched him back a little and he was having something in his neck. So I don't know if that impacted any of his play, but even on the one on Michael Davis, Bills are going from right to left. Diggs is on the bottom of the screen and he runs that slant and Allen puts it on him and he outstretches fingertips. Like Michael Davis, he's playing with inside leverage. Like teams know at this point, like Diggs is going to go inside. We'll play with inside leverage, and credit to Diggs. He's like, oh, I don't care that you know what I'm going to do. I'm still going to like make it work. But
still going to win on some of the reps.
Exactly. But we're continuing to see it just, it seems like Allen to Diggs is very much becoming like trying to squeeze blood from a stone. And given their talent levels, you would think it shouldn't be that way, or you would at least hope, okay, well, that must mean that, someone else is going off for 100 yards every week and the offense is humming because they're doing so much to take away Diggs. And we're just not seeing that. So I think that's something, again, we have to keep an eye on going forward. But again, like you said, the pass catchers, they made big plays in big moments tonight when they needed to. And it's a large part of, why they won this game.
Yeah. And the last piece on offense is one that talk about a box score that lies. This is going to say that the Los Angeles Chargers hit Josh Allen twice and sacked him once. And I felt like their defensive line was so consistently winning the line of scrimmage. And the reason Josh was bailing a little bit earlier or more, concerned with it, the reason that, Cook had 3.5 yards a carry, I just felt like the Chargers defensive line really came to play in a strong way and in a spot where they were embarrassed the week before and really came back out and I thought did well. I don't think the Bills offensive line was terrible. I do agree. Some people put in the chat. Mitch Morse got called for holding twice for blocking.
Garbage.
Like just for blocking. Like he wasn't outside the frame. He was on the chest plate, which is 100% how they coach you to block. And then as the guy moved away, let go both times. Like neither of his holding calls were holding. So whatever. There were some ticky-tack penalties and spots that I don't think made the offensive line look maybe as bad as what they made them look worse than what they actually were. But in fairness, I don't think this was the best offensive line performance we've seen, certainly taking into account the non-Khalil Mack members of that defensive line.
Absolutely. And I love I wanted to piggyback on the Mitch Morse point, especially whichever one when Allen stepped up and evaded through like the center of the line. He held Tui Pelotu for like literally a quarter of a second. And when he tries to get away, Mitch Morse let go. That happens literally every single play. Like that was not egregious. It didn't
multiple
even affect
times every step.
Yes. Yeah. And it didn't even impact Tui Pelotu. Tui Pelotu wasn't even looking for the flag. Like he was just like, oh, okay, keep playing. Oh, penalty. Okay, cool. That one blew my mind. Even I rewound it.
That was a decent chunk play to Knox. Like I don't know if Knox got the first, but it was pretty close. He either got the first on that long play or put us into position to third and short.
It was a first.
One of the
it was
two.
A good chunk. It was a good play.
Yeah. Like that was that's really impactful when you figure out that. Thankfully, Sam Martin kind of saved us and punting out of our own end zone with a ridiculous punt. But you're just a huge one to take away on a ticky-tack call that, like you said, happens every single play.
Yeah, I didn't like that one. Even the leg whip on Spencer Brown, I kind of understood, but I didn't think he leg whipped. I thought he was just following through. I thought it was a momentum thing, but I understood, like, okay, call it, fine.
Yeah,
but there was
I don't know that he intended to, but I'm okay with that getting called because he physically did it. Like he physically did it. I'll give him that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of the holding ones were terrible.
Too much. And like you said, like even Khalil Mack, like they put his numbers up before the game. And I don't want to take anything away from Khalil Mack because he's awesome. You know, he's tied for third in sacks coming into this week with 15, but they've come in bunches, you know, so he played in all 14 games leading into this one. He's had 0 sacks in 8 of those 14 games.
Doesn't he have a 6 or something?
Yes.
Like that,
so he's got 4 coming into tonight before tonight. He had 4 games with 2 sacks, 1 game with 1. And then in week 4 against the Raiders, he had 6. So it's a bit misleading, but you saw some of, you know, he still has that ability to impact the run game, but still, you know, go speed to power when it comes to pass rush and go through dudes. He went through Brown. He went through Torrance. He went through Deion Dawkins. And I like Tui Pelotu. Before Bosa went down, Tui Pelotu was a really nice, like, third rushing option as a rookie coming out of USC, but then Bosa goes down, and it's been a lot to ask of him, but he flashed at times tonight. Austin Johnson looked like a monster inside at times flashing, and you just didn't expect to see that given, again, what we've seen from this Chargers defense, who on the year has just been, you know, they're 25th in EPA per play, 29th in success rate overall, 27th in success rate against the pass, 21st in success rate against the run. Like, they've been gouged left, right, and center all year, from schematically and from a talent perspective. But again, I guess pointing to the, I hate them to say it, that whole dead cat thing. Maybe it's that, and everybody bounced back and made some plays, but they controlled the line of scrimmage. Like, they played hard, they made life difficult, they got penetration, and they created displacement. But definitely disappointing, especially considering how much we saw the Bills really own the line last week schematically and just from a physical, like, people moving standpoint.
Before we flip over to the defensive side of the ball, there's a ton of you in here watching with us, which is amazing for like midnight on a holiday weekend. All Anthony and I want for Christmas is for you to press that like button. If you can press the like button, if you haven't checked us out before and you want to subscribe, that would be amazing. You get to see awesome film breakdowns from Anthony and his show on Disguised Coverage, along with working with Eric Turner on the Film Room. All the other good stuff we have going on in Cover One. Please give us a like, rating, review. That's all we want for Christmas. Is just give us a like. Just let us feel liked. That's it. All right. As we move over to the defensive side of the ball, this is the Ed Oliver game. I'm not going to take that away from them, but I swear to God, if they give Poona Ford snaps back to Tim Settle again, I'm going to lose my mind. If they give Poona Ford snaps back to Tim Settle when Daquan Jones comes back, I'm going to lose my mind.
So I want Poona Ford to get more of Linval Joseph's snaps.
Okay.
No disrespect to Linval. He's made some plays. I just think and this isn't through any fault of his own, at his size and his age and the miles that are on the tires, he just doesn't have the legs to withstand double teams and not get blown off the ball at times consistently.
We almost need him. Like, I feel like he only can function if we're going to do the 9 defensive linemen with the 5 defensive tackles. And it's like, hey, here are 10 or 12 very specific snaps that we want you next to Daquan Jones. Yes. And like, hey, we'd like you in for these very specific snaps, but like an entire drive, like that's not his thing anymore. He is a situational player.
Absolutely. And you'll see him show up situationally. Like, he's had some times where, I mean, even like, he flushed Jalen Hurts out and almost ran him down, like in that game against the Eagles. Like, he's had a couple stout moments, but he's had a bunch where he's been blown off the ball against like just a base block, let alone like double teams. I just don't think he has the legs. I think that 10 to 15 snaps is a real sweet range, like you said. I was very happy that Poona Ford got some action tonight. Unfortunately, it came, because Jordan Phillips got hurt. I don't wish injury upon anyone, but I thought Poona Ford played better than he was given credit for. It's something I've said on Twitter. It's something I've said on the shows. Like I keep seeing the comments from people be like, man, like Poona Ford's been such a disappointment. He handles double teams well, and he plays the run really good. If your expectation was, well, Poona Ford's going to come in and get like 10 sacks, then yeah, he's been awful.
Let me apologize. Most of that's my fault. Most of that's my fault. But it was like, the hard part is people misunderstood my excitement. My excitement was because I specifically targeted a player we needed and I wanted him to sign, and then he signed. I was excited about the prediction, and people took that as
all pro.
Like, oh, he must be amazing. Look how excited Greg is. And I'm like, wait. I mean, I want him to be our fourth defensive tackle. Like, I want him to be a backup to Daquan Jones. I want him to be a nice rotational one tech who actually can push the pocket here or there. So, but I'll take it. Like, that's my fault. I got people too excited. But then when he was on the field, like, he's good. Like, he was good. He was doing what, not amazing, not exceptional, not like should be starting, but like good and should be playing. So I'm a little confused, and I'm hopeful that this flash from him, he got a sack himself. He directly caused in that Oliver
That
sack.
spin move,
like he directly flushed Easton Stick into Ed Oliver for another sack.
Absolutely.
Had nice run stuff in their things. I'm hopeful it keeps him in that rotation. Like you said, maybe it is giving Linval Joseph a break, whatever it may be. All those things said, Ed Oliver was ridiculous. So one, consistently impactful, consistently pushing the pocket, being able to be disruptive. And then what do you want from your top paid defensive lineman other than, can you make a play when it really matters? And he's the sack when they absolutely could not take a sack, and to make that play at the very end to end any like, oh my God, are we going to Billsy up this game here at the end? To put those fears and anxiety to rest with that here, as Nick said, that Ed Oliver sack at the end was major. Like, that's what when you give a guy the second contract we gave him, and plenty of people raise their ears of like, hey, is that too much money? I think he's already alleviated those concerns this season, but today really put an exclamation point on it.
Absolutely. He closed it out like you want your superstars to, or your big time players to make a big time play in that game. And, you know, I know we've all echoed it on the brand all season, but what Ed Oliver and Leonard Floyd have done for this defensive line with all the injuries to the defense as a whole, but Daquan Jones going down, Greg Rousseau playing with like a broken stump of a foot for the majority of the year, Von Miller not being himself. So much of this defensive line has been Ed Oliver and Leonard Floyd, and Ed has just been really unwavering in his impact plays week in and week out. I think a lot of, like, I balked a little bit at the contract when he got it, but it wasn't because I didn't think he was good. Like, you saw those flash plays, but it was just in between them, you were like, did Ed Oliver play today? And then you were like, oh, he had 60 snaps. Oh, I guess he did. You're not saying that anymore. He is consistently flashing. And even when he's not flashing, he's doing more dirty work that allow others to succeed. But today, we saw two, big splash plays from him, one really to close out the game. I was super nervous when he hit him, though, because I thought he got him like a little high, and I was like, don't say that he hit him in the face. Do not throw a flag right now and said that's going to be roughing the passer. And then they didn't, and everything was okay. But watching Ed, he sealed the game. And when you pair him with, Daquan, I think, was playing at all-pro level with what he does against the run and against the pass. But when you pair him with a run defender next to him on the interior that doesn't get pushed off the ball, like a Poona Ford, honestly, like somebody who I like Ilianku. Like, I would have thrown Ilianku into the lineup at some point this year because of the way he can anchor and take on double teams. But it allows Ed to work those one-on-ones or split or give him more support on the interior. And it was nice to see him have two big sacks and two big moments playing opposite of Poona Ford because of, how Poona Ford plays. And it was nice to see him, penetrate. And it really closed the game out in a moment where, are the Bills going to Bills this game right now? Like, and they hadn't really gotten consistent pressure all game. And when you needed it, and it was instantaneous, he got a one-on-one, cross chop, rip, done, sack. Like, no miss, no, well, he got a pressure, but he couldn't bring him down. No, he got home in an instant, brought him down, closed it out. That was a huge, I earned my contract type of play from Ed Oliver.
Yeah, it's really, really appreciated. And there were moments, especially early in this game, some of the early drives by the Chargers, I was certainly frustrated in, hey, we got to get home. Like, somebody's got to be able to win their matchup here. We have to be able to get him off his spot. He has way too much time in these situations. So to not let, especially you combine that with the time of possession and the amount of snaps they were on the field for them to finish the way that they did in those situations, playing 60 snaps defensively. I think is really a great sign for what we're looking for here. At the second level, I don't know that this was necessarily Bernard or Dodson's best game, but they did the job. You talked about the anxiety when I was petrified that we were going to lose Bernard, with everything that was going on. So I was like frantically scrolling to try to figure out, because I knew the people were there watching. When they said he walked off on his own and was
Mhm.
running on the sideline, okay. And then my mom's like, "We should wait. Do we know anything?" Like, "Yep, he's okay.
He's okay.
He's all right. He's all right." Or, I mean, it's not. He didn't get carted off. They didn't have to help him off. So
Yeah.
it seems like he's going to be okay. And again, I think those two have both raised the bar for themselves significantly of what our expectations are. I was, I went full like apology form on Terrell Dodson that
Mhm.
I was so critical of him previously, and I'm not saying that he's like, as Chris Collinsworth said, he's not the best defender on the Buffalo Bills or
Traded as it.
the top graded linebacker in the NFL besides Fred Warner. He's not. But he's played significantly above my expectations. The way that they've schemed him with that Poyer as the nickel linebacker coming into the
Mhm.
three safety sets, how they've utilized him and been smart, similar to what we're asking for with Linval Joseph. Like, be smart about the usage,
Mhm.
be smart about the role, they put him into a good position. Bernard has done the same. I don't think today is a game that they're going to like, send in the film of like, hey, this is how great we are. But they both did their jobs.
Yeah, and I think honestly, I think Bernard deserves a ton of the flowers for his success, but I think some of Dodson's success, which he deserves, in his own right, it should go to Sean McDermott for how he's utilizing both
Yeah.
of them. It reminds me a little bit. It's not the same role in any way, shape, or form, but in the COVID year, when they had injuries at linebacker and they had to start AJ Klein. And basically all they did was
Oh,
blitz
sure.
AJ Klein. And so AJ Klein would have like a sack and a half a game. And everybody's like, wow, he's such a good pass rusher. It's like, no, he's just good coming forward. So they're just sending him forward every single play. And it's similar to with Dodson, like make sure he's playing on those known rundowns when they get into known passing situations. Let's get in some dime. Let's get him off the field. Let's not play to his weaknesses. And it's just a basic coaching thing. There's so many, I think we get caught up so many times in evaluating players in terms of, well, this is what they can do and this is what they can't do and this is what blah blah blah. Good coaches focus on what a player can do and they use that player in that way. And if a player can do more good things, fantastic. That means you can use him in more ways. But McDermott really keeping him more by the offensive line, allowing him to come forward. And I think the more he gets snaps, he's been better at fitting the run, not undercutting or overshooting gaps. He still has a couple plays every game where he's in the same gap as someone else, which isn't necessarily his fault, but times where you'd like him to fit a little better. But he's been strong against the run. He's still going to be, worrisome in space at times in coverage, especially if the ball carrier, receiver, whoever has it, like can eye him up and give him a little shake. That's still going to be an issue. But McDermott's really wielded both of them. We got the Terrell Bernard sack in this game came off of another cross dog blitz, which we've seen McDermott incorporate these past several weeks, which is very reminiscent of his Carolina days where he would just throw Thomas Davis and Luke. Oh, beautiful there from Nicholas saying that cross sack from Bernard was beautiful. Yeah, we've seen it. We've seen it worked in with 5 and 6 man pressures and some simulateds. Like it was a nice mugged up look on third down, and Dodson did his job in creating space for Bernard. Bernard with the tight loop.
Love
like
that.
I think that's an important piece too. Dodson and Bernard are starting to play well off of one another. The communication is there, the responsibility and the rapport and the chemistry is there. And I think it's part of the reason both of them are playing well because they have legitimate chemistry with one another. I think they each make each other better in their own right. And again, not a game where you're going to write home about either too much. Bernard missed a bunch of tackles in this one, but they made big plays when they needed to, specifically Bernard, and they played their role well. Again, you're just trying to don't be a vulnerability. You don't need to be Matt Milano. You don't need to be all pros. Just don't be a glaring weakness. There is other talent on this defense. Let that talent carry the load. Just don't be a hole.
Yeah. And it's funny, my kind of, story arc with Terrell Dodson, it's gotten now to the point where in my mind, I'm like, you want to know what? I kind of like him as a third linebacker because third linebackers play in obvious rundowns and that he kind of makes sense when Milano's back and healthy. Like it really does logically fit. And of course, he's now played himself into someone's going to pay him as a starter
Right.
next year. Like someone's going to give him a, probably honestly like a 3-year, $18 million deal or something like that.
I'll say
Like
like
he's
the
going to
like
get,
the TJ Edwards Bears contract somewhere in that range. I think
he's going to be paid as somebody's like second starting linebacker. And he's going to start for Arizona or Atlanta or something like that next year. And God bless him. He's earned it. Yeah, he's earned it. In the secondary, I enjoy that Cam Lewis flashes for me like once a game now, and I'm like, you want to know what? I was very much like, I think I was a bit jaded in the idea that like, okay, I know it's a cute story that he's from UB and like that's fun, but like, can't we find someone better than this like scrappy guy who keeps?
I still see him as the guy who did knock down the Justin Jefferson pass, and it still pisses me off.
Fair. So I love that he continues to flash and like he is what you want your Tyler Medikevich's, your Saran Neals to be, in that, hey, I want my special teams guys to be able to give me some snaps and to fit and to do a job from scrimmage when I need them to, because they're capable of doing that. I don't want it to be like, hey, we can't put those guys on the field. Now I'm now in that mode of I want more and more of those guys where like, hey, we don't have good enough special teams production to warrant as many like designated special teams roster spots as we have. If we're going to do that, we got to get better than what we've been getting in both the return and coverage units. So I'm happy that he's flashed. I love the way they're using Poyer and being smart about it. And God bless Brandon Beane for going to get us Rasul Douglas, because every single game he just makes me happier and happier that he's on our football team. Run game, making plays on the ball, blitzing for sacks. Like just Rasul Douglas is on our team and I enjoy it.
Part of the reason, we did the salary cap episode and like guys we wanted in free agent stuff. Like one of the guys I want, when I didn't think Poyer was coming back, I wanted CJ Gardner-Johnson. One, because of his versatility in play, but two, I wanted that bite and that tenacity added to the defense. Rasul Douglas adds that. Dude is just swagger and intensity and physicality, but he also, like, you don't use those just descriptors for him because he's not good at football. He's smart. He's got a high football IQ. Like, he's technically sound. He fits so well in this coverage scheme. And yeah, he continues to make play after play. The Bills got a legitimate high-end CB2, low-end CB1 for basically nothing. And he's under contract next year. And if he sucks, if he did suck, which he doesn't, they could have cut him for
nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Tremendous deal. The Rasul Douglas trade and the Leonard Floyd signing have been absolutely tremendous jobs from Brandon Beane. Kind of like moves made at the 11th hour type of thing, like just beautiful in both respects. And yeah, Douglas played well again tonight. I like what Cam Lewis has done, and I think he's fine for what he does. I know he's getting a ton of love to the point where some people are like, he needs to be considered like the safety of the future. And man, he's doing amazing. And I also think we're getting to a point, and I saw this a bunch on Twitter, people are starting to blame Taylor Rapp for things that aren't necessarily Taylor Rapp's fault. And then when Cam Lewis gets straight up beat in man coverage, nobody says anything. It's just crickets, because Cam Lewis is like amazing now. But I do like the versatility. He's got some slot and some nickel opportunity. He plays the special teams. He can play safety. He can, play a little bit around the box and give you some man coverage. He can drop deep and play in a split field look, maybe even some post safety. I like what he's given them, and they've needed it. Like, I know Hyde and Poyer haven't really been Hyde and Poyer this year.
Sure.
But losing Micah Hyde is a significant piece. And the comment there, from Bills Are Electric saying Cam Lewis is very nice depth. I think that's a beautiful way to put it. You've got somebody who, when he gets in the game, can offer you snaps that, doesn't make the dam break and everything is just, God, everything's on fire. He has held down the fort in Micah Hyde's absence. To your point, he's flashed, like, especially last week, him covering Jake Ferguson one-on-one and making some plays. Like, he's done a lot of nice things. I like what he's done in terms of filling in, again, trying to stem the tide for Hyde being out. One of the things that in that safety rotation and I know Poyer plays it well. I've been like confused all year as to when they go to those 3 safety packages when everybody's healthy, why Taylor Rapp is always one of the deep safeties. Like, he's so much better in and around the line of scrimmage. Like, he was the dime linebacker for the Rams winning the Super Bowl. Like, he was covering Jamar Chase in and around the box and out of the slot. And not to say that he can do that on every snap, but I feel like Poyer is better deep than Rapp is deep. And the difference between them around the box is negligible, and Rapp is even better there, especially with how good of a tackler he is. So I thought it was interesting with how they played him and used him this year. But, you know, again, you're just trying to stem the tide while you've got these injuries and these guys going down. And, you know, a couple of really nice plays tonight from Cam. Johnston showed up in some big moments again tonight with some pass breakups, some tackles, some run fits. Christian Benford continues. Also, here's a little that when he did the talking head introduction from the school he's from, he said his name is Christian Ben Ford, it sounded like. And I was like, have we been saying his name wrong this entire time? Is it Ben Ford and not Benford? Or was it a little accent? I need somebody to dig into this and confirm. But he continues to step up and make plays. I know he got beat a couple times tonight, but just I don't think anybody saw the strength of this defense being like potentially on the outside with Rasul Douglas and Christian Benford when the season started, but they've been consistent week in and week out.
I think in the offseason we'll talk. I still have a sneaking suspicion that neither of our starting safeties are currently on the roster for next year, but we'll see that. We have plenty of time to figure that out.
A lot of good ones in the draft. I'm very excited for that opportunity.
Yeah, we've got a good chance for it there. Let's flip over into kind of the timeline of this game. We started out in, you know, the scenario, you know, we come out, we you know, it's kind of sloppy. I was excited that we got the ball and that they won and deferred. I was like, that's great. This is how they worked out with Dallas. We're going to go down. Let's get a quick score, set the tone, let them know that, hey, there's no messing around here. This is going to be just a quick punch in the mouth and we'll get it over with and be polite to you. And then we'll move on our way. And as soon as they have it, like you said, he dirts the initial ball. We kind of mess around a little bit. It gets broken up. We try to take the shot. And then they get the ball and we start to see some of those, you know, movement. I'm like, God, why are we giving him enough time to make these like intermediate chunk plays? I don't understand why we're allowing this. But the bend but don't break style. And I think there's a lot of people who would ask, like, hey, if you're a 2-touchdown underdog and you just went 14 plays and 90 yards, should you be kicking field goals on 4th and goal from the 2? Like, do you think? And there's a couple of these spots where GIF probably should. You know, you had 6 scoring drives. A couple of those probably should have been 4th down attempts to go for in those spots. And then we get the ball back. You know, we don't do anything with it. You know, we mess around. We get a quick stop from them and everything. Okay, all right, we got to stop. We're going to get the ball back here. And then Deontay Hardy gift wraps it, and we give them a touchdown, and we punt again. And like I string those together because that stretch of frustrating defense, giving up the ball from a turnover standpoint, and our first 3 drives are all 5 plays. We got a first down on each of them, and we give the ball back. It just started with such a like clunky start where, oh my God, it's 10-0. And not only is it 10-0, we just punted the ball back to them and gave them the ball up 10-0. What is going on?
Aiden O'Connell like lit this team up the week before, and we can't get like 2 first downs on a drive. And then also,
I believe Aiden O'Connell had 4 first quarter touchdowns.
Yeah, just absolutely wild. And you're like, oh, okay, so Allen will probably throw 17 like first quarter touchdowns in this one, and it's just the opposite. And then of course, like we said, like then as we're like just ruining the day, it's like a 1-play 57-yard touchdown to Gabe Davis.
For as much crap as we give Collinsworth, like he was literally saying it. He's like, you know, I know you're up 10 points, but you kind of messed around and they're going to wake up. And literally it's that play, like that play. It's Josh rolling out, hitting Gabe for the touchdown. And that obviously was a huge, like exhale, sigh of relief. Like, okay, all right, let's calm down here. We then turn it around. You know, they start to move the ball a little bit again, but we get a holding call, takes it back. eliminates what would have been an interesting 4th and 1 decision, because it would have been at like the 41, which is like 4th and 1 at your own 41 is like analytically a go. And especially as an underdog. So the fact that, because I saw a couple of people ask me, oh, why would you accept a penalty? What, going back to 3rd and 22, you never know what's going to happen. Benford makes a really great play on the ball, and we end up not having anything to worry about. But that kind of set up through that point, it was interesting to hear people talk about. And then we finally come into a touchdown drive, a legit, like actual touchdown drive. We saw Leonard Fournette's first real usage, being able to contribute a 5 and a 9 yard run. And then all of a sudden, like in my mind, I was like, okay, all right, we ended the half there. We played horror. I think my exact comment to my parents at their home was, we just played horrible and we're going into halftime with the lead.
Yeah, that's fair. Like you gave this team that just had their soul taken a week ago and basically fired their leadership staff as a result of it, and a culmination of a multitude of other things. And you gave them life. Like you gave them every opportunity to feel good about themselves. You take the ball, or you get the ball first, and like you said, and you punt it away. And then again, I know it was only a field goal, but you're still feeling a little good. If you're the Chargers, like 14 plays, 90 yards. But that's also to your point. Like I thought for sure you're playing with house money. It's 4th and 2 at the 2. Screw it. Like we're going for it. And it's part of the reason I thought I liked the McDermott penalty exception on that, what would have been like a 4th and 1, because I thought the Chargers would go for it. But then part of me was like, well, they didn't go for it on 4th and 2 from the 2. So maybe they won't. But you really had the opportunity. And Collinsworth said it at one point in this game, like, when I think they ran like the fake reverse with Ekeler that got like a first down, and he was like, oh, your back's against the wall and you can do whatever. And I was like, the Chargers aren't playing that way though. They're very much playing like, oh, like we got to play tight. We're first in the division. Let's make sure we don't lose the 1 seed. No, like, to your point, I thought they would come out a bit more, throw caution to the wind, screw it. Like we don't have anything to lose. Let's go and try and take this game. And honestly, they could, like, if they would have capped off that, if that 14 play, 90 yard drive ended up being a 14 play, 92 yard drive and a touchdown, that's a huge momentum swing coming out for a team that, again, wants to make a statement after getting housed the week before. And I don't know this for sure, but also maybe like that lets a little steam out of the sails a bit when you drive it down and you still kick the field goal. It's just like, oh, okay, like 3 points. Like I felt like that kind of, the pendulum was tilting a little bit, and then it kind of came back to regress to the mean a little bit when they did that. And it ended up, leading to some positivity for the Bills as we went forward in the drives like you laid out.
For sure. And I think coming out of the half, it opened up another opportunity there where, all right, like I wasn't that worried about them deferring to the second half, but we just gave up a bunch of crap. And now we have another one where Ekeler starts to move a little bit, and they're getting down there in Bills territory. And I'm like, God, how did this happen so quickly? I don't understand. And I will say, like, the Taron Johnson penalty, the unnecessary roughness.
He tackled him.
I am very much like, for anyone who is like obsessed with football is what I am. I'm very conscious of the necessary evils to protect the future of the game.
Absolutely.
And like, I get it. We can't have headhunting over the middle. I get it. We can't have guys launching, and like, even like guys that I love, like Bob Sanders and stuff like that would just like launch themselves at players sometimes. Like, I get it. I know it's fun. With the oh God, lit up with the segment used to be on Monday Night Football when guys would get lit up, and I get it. You can't have that. This was he hit with the shoulder and helmet to Everett's shoulder, and it was a quick snap, violent hit because it's two large men coming together.
And Everett lowered himself.
There are some where afterwards people will say, I don't know what you wanted to do, but like our acknowledgement on the Spencer Brown thing. I'm like, yeah, I don't know what you want him to do, but it was clear, violent face mask to face mask, or like crown of helmet to crown of helmet contact. And like, hey, you just can't have it. Like, you just can't have those. This wasn't that. Like, Everett lowered himself, and Johnson's first contact was with his shoulder. It wasn't into the helmet. And like, it just, I hate seeing that, because I do err on the side of caution. I do understand that, like, hey, I want football to be here 30 years from now. I don't want it to just fall by the wayside because we can't make it safe. But God, it just killed me to see that. And we extend it that way, so I'm already frustrated. And then they go right back to it, and Austin Ekeler breaks one, and we're all of a sudden we're opening the half, and they're in Bills territory. And here's where Rasul Douglas just comes clean off the edge, knocks them back. Where with Dicker, anything in our territory is apparently within range.
Right.
Knocks them out to 4th and 18, and gets us the ball back to end it without having it be anything crazy.
I think you narrated that really well. Like, there's so much with hitting now. Like, I grew up watching like NFL films and seeing what Jack Tatum was and what Dip Buckus was, and like all these dudes who would like murder guys on the field. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then you grow up and it's like, yeah, now all those dudes are like 50 and they can't read a book and can't walk and all these things. And I'm like, oh, and I remember seeing, like, in a different way, but I remember like Earl Campbell in like the 90s, like he's got arthritis so bad he can't even like bring a spoon to his mouth because of the physicality and how he used to play and everything that happened. And I don't want anything happening to these guys, but you said, like, there is an inherent evil or acceptance that comes with, like, the object of football is to get as big and as strong and as fast as you can, and then put on equipment and slam your body into a full-grown man who is also trying to get as big and as strong and as fast as he can to slam his body into you. And I thought the Taron Johnson play wasn't dirty. It wasn't defenseless. It wasn't somebody in the air that didn't have to be hit. Dude made a catch, turned, lowered his shoulder, and Taron Johnson made the hit. And that's what it was. Not to mention, too, Everett towers over Taron Johnson. The reason that was
by the way bigger dude.
Everett lowered his whole body, like, I don't even know what angle degrees, like, I don't know, like a 104-degree angle downward or whatever. And that's where the contact came. And it was unfortunate to see it, especially with all the ticky-tack offensive ones that we were seeing throughout the game that we talked about earlier, especially with the offensive line. But to your point, like, they overcame it. I think that's a nice little point, too. This easily could have been one of those games where we're sitting here on the post game talking about the turnovers and the stupid penalties and the stupid refs and the horrible timed like calls here and there, and the Bills sat here and lost. And we're sitting here talking about all these ticky-tack things that went against the Bills, and they still came out and won this game. Like, there's something to be said for that, because they really, and they shouldn't have lost this game, but they really easily could have, because there's a bunch of stuff where, the proverbial ball did not bounce in their favor in this game.
Yeah. So they punt the ball down deep in our territory. And on the first play, James Cook puts the ball on the carpet, but Reggie Gilliam recovers it. And I'm like, all right, okay, let's settle down. We're so excited about James. Like, he's played great. Everything, that's cool. And then on the next play, Josh tries to hero ball the football 70 yards down the field across his body, and like Alohi Gilman just is right there. He's like, all right, man, I'll take it. Cool. And I'm like, God, why can't we just do anything easy? We just have to make it difficult. So again, we give them the ball in prime territory, similar to the Deontay Hardy fumble. The defense actually holds up, similar situation, kind of holds up their end of the bargain. Holds them, to a sack by Poona Ford here, that gets them back into a situation where they need to be able to punt it, or to be able to kick it. And Dicker does make it, but they kind of stem the tide of like, all right, that could have been worse. We keep it 14-13. We just gave them the ball in a great situation, and then answer back with probably our best offensive drive of the game. 10 plays, 75 yards. All the way down the field. Josh ends up kind of pushing it in on our Buffalo shove, our snow shovel or snowplow play. But that stretch of just, oh my God, whew, we made a stop. And then we get the ball back and we try to turn it over 2 plays in a row and are successful on one of them. And then the defense holds, but it's just, again, like we keep just daring the Chargers to get back in this game.
Yeah, it was very much like, I don't know, like the Bills were like, we don't want to make this game a blowout. Like, let's make it entertaining. Like, let's just see what we can do. Like, it felt like there were so many opportunities in this game for them to finally pull away and take like a double-digit touchdown lead or just a double-digit lead in general. Like the farthest that they got from the Chargers was 21-13. And even me being like the pessimistic and paranoid person that I am, when it was 21-13, I was like, okay, here we go. But exactly to your point, like how you highlight it.
Same idea as my comment earlier of like, it has to be really, really low. So Adam here saying, Twitter is saying, and I quote, in the last 40 years, NFL teams that won the turnover margin 3-0, one time of possessions, and had fewer penalties than their opponent were 249-10. So I was thinking 10%, and apparently is more like 3 or 4%. Yeah, that was certainly not an easy way to be able to do it.
Holy hell. Yeah, no, like it was one of those games where the Bills just did not make life easy for themselves over the course of the entire game. But like, I think so many of the position pieces we've talked about tonight, the drive pieces we've talked about tonight, offensively and defensively, the Bills just made situational plays. A really big catch here on third down, an explosive generated here that led to a touchdown, a sack or a big negative play here that ended a drive or forced the field goal. It seemed like the big plays for the Bills either took points away or gave themselves a touchdown, whereas the Chargers, situational plays that worked out for them didn't really, again, allow them to capitalize for much. Like if you're the Chargers, you're sitting here looking at this game. Like if you're a Chargers fan or the Chargers team, you're literally looking at this game being like, this has been our entire season where even when everything goes our way, we still lose this game. Like the Chargers Billsed this game. Like they Bills their entire season. Like that's what it's been like. And also it feels like the Chargers have been this way for years. Like every year I feel like it's like, man, the Chargers are going to be something, and they just continue to charger. Like even they finally make it to the playoffs last year and just blow that game after seemingly having, the Jags dead to rights. Yeah. Again, like you said, like the Bills gave the Chargers every opportunity, not only to stay in this game and feel good, but to take the game away from the Bills, but they just couldn't. And some of that was due to, the Bills, they'd give that opportunity, but they'd pull that pendulum back a little bit and be like, no, let's take care of this and, really wrap things up.
So obviously when it's 21-13, I'm feeling really good. We saw that another nice scramble drill play with Gabe Davis, that Khalil Shakir third down where he kind of saved Josh from a pretty rough throw. But we let the Chargers come back down, and where I thought we could really put it away, a couple plays where we gave Easton Stick too much time again, and I'm frustrated because he's hitting Jalen Guyton down the field and Josh Palmer down the field. And then we tighten up. We get it together. We hold them to a field goal. It's 21-16. We're getting it back. I'm like, all right, we're going to go down, score a touchdown, put this out of reach. Game will be over. We're in the fourth quarter. It'll be fine. And it kind of looks like it. Like we get a Cook run and then a Cook pass for a first down. Oh, Spencer Brown tripping penalty. Then Josh comes and hits Gabe Davis on a 28-yarder to get us out of that hole. Mitch Morse phantom holding penalty. Then they try to actually run a screen. It gets identified. Josh has to just scramble up the field. And then the next play, like I get it, it's 3rd and 23. I think Dawson Knox could have ran for a little bit, or if he kept his eyes on Sherfield a little bit further, maybe we make something of it. But whatever, we need to be able to just get it off. Sam Martin unleashes a 58-yard punt with shorter than usual distance, and LA trying to cook up something different. Just a really clutch play in the moment. I've been ready to move on from Sam Martin, but a game like tonight, 3 punts inside the 20, and the one that wasn't inside the 20 saved our bacon with a 58-yarder coming out of the end zone, was certainly a welcome sight where, they still turn it into a field goal and are able to get, they did get the one nice play to Erickson. But we end up get them into a spot where they have to kick another field goal. And it could have really gotten out of hand there. but we hold it to only 19, and that combination of the Sam Martin punt kept us in that situation.
Yeah, he punted it to the Chargers 39, and then it got returned to the Bills 48 for 13 yards. But to your point, yeah, the Chargers get a field goal on that drive because they started on the Bills 48. But Martin, that one was beautiful. The one that I think is maybe his third punt of the game or second punt of the game, the one going right to left that he put out of bounds to the right at like the 5-yard line where it just bounced and completely. I think Collinsworth was like, "Oh, it just turned right," and he guided it right out. Like he had a couple real nice punts. I've been in a similar boat as you with Martin, but also just with the special teams as a whole. I've been very disappointed in the Bills special teams this year. Just poor coverage, lack of integrity and execution. And then, you're seeing poor punts. You're seeing some missed field goals, but it's really been just coverage stuff on punts, on kickoffs. Of course, the stupid 12 men on a field goal that literally lost the game. Like, just the special teams has not been tight as a unit all year, but we needed Sam Martin to show up tonight consistently, and he did. And that punt was big. Yeah. Like this game shouldn't have been a field position battle, but it became a field position battle, especially early on when, like you highlighted at the start of the whole drive conversation, the Bills are going 5 plays punt, 5 plays punt, 5 plays punt, but those punts were good punts to continue to keep the Chargers at bay. Sam Martin, I think, with his punting allowed, and with the defense, both of them in conjunction with one another, allowed the offense time to get their bearings and start to work things out. But Martin was a significant point within that, and they needed every yard from every punt and every ounce of hang time, and especially to that 58-yarder, like you said, after that horrible drive, it had good hang time. It's not like he boomed a 58-yarder and it was like, oh, we really outkicked the coverage and now we got a 25-yard return. Like 13 yards still isn't great, but it was more due to the Chargers bringing pressure, the Gunners having to be condensed in and being knocked up. Saran Neal falls down. That was a big moment, like an underrated moment that in the course and story of this game.
So this next stretch is going to lead into my Herr Drive of the game. So Herr has been an amazing sponsor for us. And this is not the normal, easy, positive story that normally go with our Herr Drive of the game. So as we go into it, so the Bills get the ball back. They kick the field goal. It's 21-19. And even through all of that, it's 21-19. And at no point am I like, honestly, I'm never genuinely concerned that we're going to lose. I'm like, all right, it's going to be annoying. It's not as easy as it should have been, but we'll pull this out and it'll be fine, and we'll eventually just put up enough points that we'll get it taken care of. We get the ball here. James Cook runs. Alohi Gilman just clearly rips the ball right out of his arms for his second fumble of the day. At first,
I throw up.
I am in such disbelief. I mean, he had to be down. That couldn't have actually been a fumble. He had to have been down. And then I see him like, oh my God, he's not down. And we just gave them the ball while we're down 21-19, or while we have a 21-19 lead, 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and we gave them the ball. And it's just, oh my God, we're good. This is going to be the Broncos game. This is going to be the Patriots game. We're going to just find a stupid way to lose this after so many other things have gone our way. And of course, after we beat the Chiefs and the Cowboys, of course, we're going to throw up on ourselves against the Chargers. Of course, that's how it's going to go. And my Herr Drive of the game is this combination. First is a run to Austin Ekeler. Terrel Bernard, really sound, clean tackle. Then they go no huddle and are trying to catch us off guard. Gerald Everett catches the ball and they kind of mark it as a first down, but then they come back and say, no, okay, nope, it's actually, only third. It's actually 3rd and 1. So then they come back, and then the Chargers, in what is a very Billsy play here, false start, and they call it on the center for moving the ball ahead, but they show afterwards like Ekeler and Everett are both sitting there. Everett's literally motioning to the quarterback while he's snapping the ball for the quarterback. So like multiple people were false started on the play. And then that when it takes him back to 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, whatever it was, this is where you get that mugged up look where how many times have we seen us be up in that look, and everybody drops. Instead here, Dawson goes in just hard enough to really draw Ekeler up in pass protection to block him, which gets him to basically take on the double team of the center and Ekeler, and lets Bernard loop around clean, and hits hits Easton stick on a huge play, and holding them to a field goal in that spot where a lot of defenses, after getting crushed in time of possession, just coming off back-to-back scoring drives, 3 straight scoring drives. Those 3 straight scoring drives that they had been on the field for added up for over 10 minutes of time of possession, and you were off the field for 1 snap and then have to immediately go back on the field. For them to bow up and hold that to a field goal was very deservedly the Herr Drive of the game. That is a play that against some other teams, or a scenario in against other teams earlier this season, we would have found a way to lose that and give up a touchdown in that spot and really dig ourselves a hole we may not have dug out of. So it's weird that a defensive drive that gave up points is our drive of the game, but I think it's deserving.
No, I completely agree. You're sitting there and you're looking at it before that drive. The Bills defense was on the field for 17 plays, and the offense was on the field for only 4. And 3 of them were 3 plays and a punt on the penalty drive with the 3 plays for negative 22 yards. And then the next one was that Cook fumble. Like, exactly to your point, this could have been the moment where the Chargers scored a touchdown, and you know what? Nobody would have blamed the defense too much. Everybody would have sat there and been like, oh, the stupid turnovers and James Cook's fumbles and the penalties on the offense and all this. Like, this is that moment where the Bills could have lost this game, and everybody would have sat there being like, of course the defense couldn't finally stand up and, kind of make a play when they've played so well all game. And when the game is really on the line, they blew it, just like against New England, just like against Denver, yada, yada, so on and so forth. But yeah, that moment was huge. And, you're sitting there thinking like, oh, like a defensive drive. And it was, granted it was in the fourth quarter, but 4 plays, like negative 3 yards. It was huge. And yeah, that call, I thought Everett got the first down. Like, I know where he went down. I thought it was negligible enough that the call could have stayed.
Yes.
And when it got overturned, I was like, I literally said, wow, wouldn't it be awesome if they like fumbled the snap or something? And it said it was a false start. And I was like, oh, that's fun. And then they had that cross dog blitz, which again, they hadn't showed that look all game. And McDermott getting into that look and that call in that moment was tremendous. To present a look that you had not shown, to run something you had not run. And Austin Ekeler is pretty good in pass pro. Like, he knows what's up. We saw him, he flipped Poyer on his head earlier in the game with a tremendous blitz pickup. It was so well designed and well timed that Ekeler just got lost in the sauce. I don't think he even saw Bernard until it was too late. You see him go like, oh crap, and try to get him, and Bernard has already passed him. It was well executed by Dawson, a real tight loop from Bernard, but that's a great call from McDermott, who has at times this year gone to really ineffective blitzes, especially in the fourth quarter. And this one was beautiful, and they needed it because this is where the game really could have gotten away. And especially, another turnover, then the ball is going back. If the Chargers score a touchdown, the ball's going back to the offense. Josh has already made some errors. Does Josh try to press further, and does it lead to another turnover? And it could have spiraled or snowballed negatively out of control. And the defense did something we've been waiting for them to do all year, which is, just continue to stem the tide and be that dam that doesn't break.
Yeah, and obviously that led into a very smart drive at the Bills had, and probably Josh Allen's best drive. The other scoring drives, there was a fair amount of like scramble drill stuff and some receivers saving Josh, like Khalil Shakir converting on the 3rd down. Here, Josh was sharp and making good decisions, converting first downs early, finding Diggs for a first down, finding Shakir on a fantastic play where, Josh is backpedaling at full speed, like 13 or 14 yards behind the line of scrimmage off his back foot as he's falling backwards, and finds Shakir out in the middle of the field so open that he had a chance to get back up and run into the end zone. He technically, it was the right call, I think, by a millisecond. They touched him down. But as we kind of talked about early, in the show, I think it's debatable. Like, it would have been the Bills would have scored with 2 minutes and 34 seconds left. Let's say they get the 2-point conversion, and it would have been maybe a scoregami of 29-22. There
Nice.
can't be a lot of 29-22
Nice.
games floating out there. I don't know if Easton stick down by a touchdown at that point is a higher probability than what it ended up being. But the Bills were smart with it. They forced the Chargers to take all their timeouts. We get a couple of runs, milk the clock all the way down. Fournette run, timeout. James Cook run, 2-minute warning. Josh Allen run, timeout. And get it all the way down to we kick the field goal with 28 seconds left. And get it back to them. We talked about the amazing sack by Ed Oliver and everything that way, but just a smart play from an offensive standpoint where Josh was his best at the time that we needed it in a game that he wasn't the sharpest.
I definitely wanted Shakir to be down by contact. I like, and again, I know the odds probably aren't too high. If you get the 2-point conversion, Easton stick, like, what are the odds of him going down and tying the game or winning the game? But I didn't want to find out what the odds were.
Yeah.
Just with everything we've seen this year. And I also didn't know, like,
and how much better is every offense when you give them 4 downs?
Oh, absolutely. Like, when they know they have to go for everything. And getting a 2-point conversion is still not a guaranteed thing. And then you're sitting there at 27-22, and it's like, okay, if I immediately in my head when he scored, I don't know why I envisioned, like, okay, and the Bills lost 29-27 because they didn't get the 2-point conversion, and Chargers got a tutty at the end, kicked the extra point, whatever, who cares? I wanted him to be down. My thought was just bleed the clock completely dry as much as you can. Like, give them as little time. I know what happened with 13 seconds. I think we all do. I think that's very much an outlier the majority of time for teams, even for a team like the Bills that are cursed in many forms and fashions. So I was happy when he got ruled down. Like, I wanted to bleed as much as we could. In a perfect world, they would have gotten another first down and given the ball to the Chargers at no point, and they would have kicked the field goal with 1 second left and ended the game, and that would have been it. But yeah, to tie that offensive drive together with the defensive one before, again, that defensive one, 4 plays, -3 yards, and then they come out and get this field goal on a 13-play, 64-yard, 4-minute and 58-second drive. Like, when you can go on those, and it gets talked about more now, like, it's not necessarily those 2-minute drives that wins games. It's like, can you get into your 4-minute offense? And the Bills got into the 4-minute offense, but usually that verbiage is used when you're trying to close a game out because you have the lead already. They got into this 4-minute offense to win the game and also close it out and end it at the same time. Everything they got, they needed it. Like, and it didn't
to run a 5-minute drive with 5 minutes and 26 seconds left to put up the scoring drive is almost, like I said, it wasn't literally perfect. Literally perfect would be kicking it as time expires, but as close as you can get in that scenario.
Absolutely. And that's really what won the game. Like, and then I also like the little, I tweeted it out before we went live, that the last drive for the Chargers to end the game. Like, I like the McDermott timeout and then the 9 defensive backs, or like the subbing out a little bit.
Took both defensive tackles off the field,
Yeah.
only athletic guys on the field, because we know we're going to do, as Scott Van Pelt and Stanford Steve just perfectly have called pitchy woo woo.
Yeah.
We knew that we were going to get pitchy woo woo. And I will say, on the one point where Ekeler starts to run and then flips it to Guyton, and Guyton gets a little bit of space on it goes around. I'm like, okay, we're okay. When Stick does the full field across the field throwback to Erickson,
I had Frank Wycheck vibes and I almost threw up.
I was like, oh my God, please, someone be over there. Someone be over there and be in position. Thankfully they were. Everything was fine. It wasn't actually I don't even know. Did they cross midfield? I don't even know if they actually crossed midfield.
No.
But it was like that split second gave me the same exact thought that you did. And I was like, oh God, okay.
And it was such a pretty, like, it was a beautiful ball from Easton Stick, like perfect spiral all the way across the field. And I literally was like, dear God, no. But then he has to cut back and everything works out. Yeah, it was really
It's a
traumatizing
good one.
there for a minute.
Joe here was at the game
Okay.
saying it was funny, very calm leaving the stadium.
That was-
Bills fans relieved and happy they did win, and Chargers fans just excited they weren't annihilated. Like, it was
It's a
just a
win-win.
win-win. It was
Everybody
just
goes
a
home happy.
really, really positive experience for everyone involved. God
Merry
bless them.
Christmas to everyone. Just a Christmas miracle, like good vibes for both fan bases. Yeah, it was a little scary at the end with the pitchy woo woo, but also too how nice, like, got a squib kick on the kickoff. Who would have thought
Yes,
that was
a
possible?
well-executed squib kick. I didn't know we were allowed to do those. That was great.
I would
I'm
also
really
too like
pleased that the communication went
yes,
properly and they
it's
told the right person
it's
how to,
nice.
you know.
It's nice that the coverage unit knew that, and so did the kicker. And I also too like could have just imagined like the squib kick hits like one of the first guys in the middle of the field, and the Chargers get the ball at the 50, and we're all just like, squib kicks are the worst thing ever. Like, that's just the mindset I was in. I was so worried for so many things, but yeah, it really, sitting back on it, like now that the emotion has like kind of left a little bit of, your heart racing and thinking like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Now we're sitting back and look on it like this was one of those games that the Chiefs win when the Bills are the 2 seed and the Chiefs are the 1, and we're all sitting there being like, remember that stupid game the Chiefs had against the Raiders where they turned it over 3 or 4 times and they still found a way to win? This was that kind of game for the Bills. And I know it's ugly and it sucks, and everybody wanted us to just clobber the Chargers and keep this momentum rolling. I think there's something to be said, even though the Chargers have not been a good team this year, there's something to be said for playing like crap the majority of the game and still finding a way to win
Yeah.
despite gifting opportunities to other teams, shooting yourself in the foot, and not playing anywhere near your best football. And these, the drive of the game that we talked about culminating through with the Bills' offensive drive and then the adjustments at the end on the final drive of the game really kind of, I think, put a nice little bow, no pun intended, with Christmas stuff, but on a win that the Bills had to have, but very realistically, again, could not have. And this was a game like good teams have these kind of games. You play some team that sucks and you still find a way to eke it out somehow, some way. And the Bills did that. And so I think those drives really kind of put it into perspective how slight that, or how small the margin for error was. And the Bills walked that margin and they came out clean.
Yeah, it was, again, they're in a spot where there is going to be there are no, committee points here. There's nothing that's going to make this into some, amazing season. They've already shot themselves in the foot multiple times. All that matters now is the result. All that matters is the win. They found a way to get a win here. They got to do it again. Their playoffs started 2 weeks ago, and they've now just started. They've stacked up 3 wins. They've got themselves in a position. They've actually had a handful of things go their way in the other games. Obviously, the Steelers beating the Bengals earlier today was very, favorable. We'll all be rooting for the Cowboys tomorrow, and a handful of other games that we'll be rooting for the Buccaneers to beat the Jags and the Browns to beat the Texans, and a couple other matchups like that, and the Falcons to beat the Colts. But the Bills have now gotten themselves into a position where they control everything. All they got to do is keep winning. They actually are in position where, we'll see what Week 18 brings. It could be a AFC East championship game. Could be a division championship game. It could be a game where both teams already have playoff spots locked up, and it's just for who the champ is and who hosts the game. There's also scenarios where both teams are in a win and you're in, lose and you're out scenario, where it's literally a playoff game. And it is, the Dolphins could get knocked out of the playoffs, but the Bills would be in a similar spot where they have to find a way to win and be able to win that game. So, again, we live to fight another day. They found a way to do it. Any final thoughts for the people here? It felt, like a warm bath being able to do the post game show with you again. It felt like riding a bike again. It was very, very enjoyable. Appreciate you jumping on with us here. I know Aaron, I did talk to him. He watched a grainy version of the game.
He listened to an FM radio with the signal.
Yeah, on his phone. It was not a pretty scenario. So I hope Aaron and his family enjoy a wonderful Christmas. But tonight was fun. It was great jumping back on with you.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me to fill in for Aaron, who, I hope he's out doing well in the wilderness of Maine, wherever he is out there. Yeah, it was awesome. I was pumped when, you messaged me. I got out of my meeting and saw that I had a couple texts from you, and he was like, "Oh, post game action, yeah," and it being the holiday, and I was definitely worried that I was going to jinx it and the Bills were going to lose this game. Like I said earlier, if they had lost, I would have 100% blamed myself. But yeah, this was awesome. Christmas weekend after a good Bills win. It was nice kind of getting back in the saddle here on the post game, and I think you laid out. I'm more nervous for New England now than I would have been if the Bills had clobbered the Chargers. But I'm, again, a nervous Nelly at all times anyway. But I think you laid out all the possible scenarios for Week 18. Like, there's a Week 18 can, regardless if you're a Bills fan, Dolphins fan, but I guess even more so if you are. But Week 18 could be really special with all these scenarios. If that game has any kind of implication, it's getting flexed. Like, that's going to be the last game of the NFL regular season. Oh, like there's just so much opportunity for, I grew up listening to the adults in my family always talking about Marino and Kelly and Squish the Fish. And I remember like going to the Galleria and McKinley Mall and seeing those like old school t-shirts with like a fish on a grill and a buffalo flipping it because everything was like killing the Dolphins, like, and everything. And it's nice to see that rivalry be back a little bit. And man, if everything is on the line in Week 18, we'll see, what it potentially leads to. I really do think, no jinx here, I really do think Miami's going to drop one of these next two games. They might even drop them both. Like, I really do think that. My bigger concern is making sure the Bills don't lose to the Patriots. Like, that's what I am most concerned about. I don't know if it's going to happen tomorrow for the Dolphins. Well, technically today because it's after midnight. I don't know if it's going to be this Dallas game or the Baltimore game. Miami is going to lose one of them. So take care of New England. Set yourself up with an opportunity to win the AFC East with the last game of the regular season. And to your point, it could mean a lot of things. Different seeds, spots already locked up, win the division, or lose and you're out, all these opportunities. But I really think Week 18 will come down to a flex game in Miami for the AFC East title. We'll see what other avenues there are. And that's a really awesome, special thing. Like, man, just as a football fan and as a person who enjoys this sport, and even as a Bills fan, even though I'm already kind of throwing up thinking about it because of nerves, that would be a really special thing. But that's awesome. I'm excited to see what happens going forward. And I had a blast tonight. Thank you for having me back.
Absolutely. And from as bad as this felt in that stretch of losing to the Bengals, Broncos, and then the loss to the Eagles, and how that felt being 6-6, fully out of the playoffs, the 11th seed, and now to be back in the spot we're in, to beat the Chiefs, Cowboys, and Chargers, get to 9-6, and at minimum, we are now in control of our own destiny. It is just an incredible spot, and I hope you guys enjoy it. This team did try to kill me tonight, but I'm resilient too. And I didn't let them, and I'm proud of myself for not letting them kill me. So huge shout out to our awesome producer, Chris Kepner, who's up with us crazy late here tonight as well. Anthony, for you carving out time to jump on with us here on the holiday weekend. And for all of you, a ton of you who are hanging out here with us tonight, please press that like button. Give us a comment in the YouTube comments. That goes a long ways. That's all we really want for Christmas, is help share all the hard work that we do here. Share it with others. That'll go a long, long ways. But on behalf of Chris and Ann, I'm Greg Thompson. You've been listening to the Cover One Buffalo podcast, and we are